Continuing with the series in the 11th preview of the 12-part opponent video series, we're going to talk about a team some think might win the Big East this year, and that's the South Florida Bulls. When you look at the Bulls on the field, they are loaded as they return 11 starters from the 2010 team that went 8-5 overall and 3-4 in the Big East. Though they won the Minor Key Car Care Bowl versus Clemson, they do lose 11 starters from that team last year. Skip Holtz is in his second year running things in the Tampa Bay area. They get B.J. Daniels back. However, he will need to get better than he was last year. He did show flashes of greatness, but mostly he was inconsistent. To emphasize that point, he threw more picks, 13, than touchdowns, 11. However, in that bowl game against Clemson, Daniels, coming back from an injury, put up huge numbers. He threw for 189 yards and 2 touchdowns and added another one rushing. USF has big plans for him going into the 2011 season. The running game will be in good hands, even though they lose Plancher to graduation. They have a transfer from Colorado coming in with Darrell Scott and another transfer, this one from Auburn and Dante Aycock. They have a back that can really make some noise in Murray, who they think could be their best of their backs. In 2010, he had 542 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. Also back is another speedy guy in Shaw. At wide receiver, they get the veteran Love back. He's in his 6th season in Tampa, and he's been very injury-prone in his career. In 2008, he tore his ACL in his left knee. In 2009, he had 26 receptions for 489 yards and 4 touchdowns. Last spring, he tore the ACL in his right knee and was granted a medical redshirt year. He's finally healthy again and brings a wealth of experience with him. And when he's healthy, this guy is a big-time threat. They also have Andre Davis coming in from Tampa Jefferson. Was a highly touted player. A lot of people wanted but chose USF. And also returning are Evan Landy, Griffin, Mitchell, and Lamar at wide receiver. So Daniels will have weapons to throw to. But on the offensive line, they took a big hit here. 3 of their starters were lost to graduation. Their center genius was a first-team All-Big East player, and their right tackle, Jacob Sims, was a second-team All-Big East player. They also lost their left tackle, Bass, but they do return 2 starters, but both on the interior, in Warren and Hine, their guards. And those 2 have started all but 1 game at guard in their career. But they are both big and physical, and will give them enough strength on the interior to build around. The rest of the starting lineup is set with Popek trying to fill Bass's shoes at left tackle. And over the past 2 years, he started getting 9 games in relief of Bass, so he is familiar with it. But now being a full-time starter, there is going to be an adjustment period. And he's going to have to adjust quickly. So also back is a 5th-year senior, Kevin Mccaskill. And he's been a backup the past 3 years, but now he's going to have to fill Genius's huge shoes. I mean, you don't replace a guy that was a 2-year starter the way Genius was. At right tackle, they will play a redshirt freshman in Eatman. He has the size, and according to Brian Bennett of ESPN.com, he was one of their stars back in the spring game. The question here is, how quickly does that line come together? Okay. That will be key how USF fares in 2011. If they come together very quickly and give Daniels time to go, watch out. They need to stay healthy because they are very thin depth-wise here and little experience behind them. Defensively, they are very good and could be one of the best in the country by season's end. In fact, last year they were 17th nationally in total defense. However, they will have to fill some holes on the D-line as they lose key guys to graduation, namely Terrell McLean. The younger guys are going to have to step their games up. One of those guys is Giddens, who was one of the nation's top recruits when he signed with the Bulls last year. He started just 2 games for them last year when Marshall went down with an injury. But he wasn't too bad as a reserve. I mean, but nothing to write home about, okay? He only had 19 tackles. However, 6 of those tackles were for loss. And he had also 3.5 sacks. This kid is fast off the edge, and they think he could be the next great player to come out of there on the D-line. I mean, think George Selvey and Jason and Pierre Paul. I mean, this could be the next great one that comes out of there. Now, on the other side, they're going to have Hampton back, who will start opposite Giddens on the other side. He started 3 games for them with Marshall out. However, and those 2 guys might end up being the next great ones to come out of USF on that line. Now, Hampton finished last year with 20 tackles, and 7 of them were for loss, and he had 2.5 sacks. Though they lack size, they don't lack speed, because they are quick. That's for sure. However, size will be an issue with those two, and that's where their defensive coordinator, Mark Snyder, in his second year running the defense in Tampa, is going to have to figure out how to prevent opposing offensive coordinators from running right at them, at their end specifically. If their line develops into 3 down players, then both Giddens and Hampton might be the best 1-2 punch in the conference, if not in the and possibly the country. Though that's a little stretch on the ladder. Now their backups are Davis, Forty, and Hill, and they give them pretty good depth there, more in terms of size. Now Hill could also see time at the tackle, but they have a redshirt freshman in Wilkerson coming in. However, he's young, inexperienced, and undersized, but he's also rangy, athletic, and provide good depth in pass rushing situations. And that's a work in progress there, but they have high hopes for him. On the interior of the D-line, they get their 5th-year senior back in Keith Mccaskill, who's the twin brother of Kevin Mccaskill, as well as their nose tackle Grissom. Their backups are Todd Chandler, Sager, and Thompson. The latter two combined for just 3 tackles in their career. In the secondary, like last year, it comes in suspect. And once again, it'll have to be by committee, especially at the cornerback position. There are guys that are going to have to step up if this D wants to be where it wants to be nationally, and it wants to be one of the best nationally. However, they do have some experience back and some depth there, especially at safety. The key guy is Jarrell Young, a senior, who led their secondary with 3 picks last year and 41 tackles. Also back is their free safety John Legisti, 43 tackles, 7 tackles for loss. Both Young and Legisti could have big years in Tampa. And their backups, Joyce and Jenkins, return as well. And at cornerback, they get Washington back as well as Kayvon Webster, who is going to try to fill the huge shoes left by the graduation of Mistral Raymond. Their backups in Baker and a walk-on in Tabato. At linebacker, they get Lattimore and Barrington back. However, this linebacker core does not have a lot of experience. Though Lattimore had a solid 2010 season with 69 tackles and 6.5 of them were for loss. There is little depth behind those two, and if either or one or both of them go down, they're in deep trouble. Now, losing Williams to graduation hurts, and they're going to have to step up, especially Witherspoon and Cleette. And they have a JUCO coming in to help from an experience standpoint in June. On special teams, they return both their kicker Bonani and their punter Brockhouse Khan. But they have 2 good returners coming back, of course, in Mitchell and Lamar.